Ciao a tutti, siamo a Lucca Comics 2019, siamo ospiti dello stand Saldapress per intervistare Mr. Daniel Warren Johnson. Ciao Daniel, Daniel? How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Fine, thank you. So, I'm sorry, so far so good? How is this con? You ever seen anything like this before?
No, I have not. Sorry, I have chocolate on my hands. I have not seen anything like this. And I've been to a lot of conventions. I was stuck in the middle of a street for like 20 minutes, just going, like not moving. Not even moving. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, it's great to be here, but it is next level. I mean, oh my God.
So, I have to say that I'm really excited to have you here because when I was reading Extremity, I fell in love with your art. So it's
Thank you.
It's like a dream come true to meet you. I'm a bit excited. So,
Right on.
first of all, I'd like to know you as an artist and moreover as a reader.
Okay.
So, what are your main influences?
Yeah.
And what are the comics that you like to read the most?
Like, that I like to read the most now, or just of all time, or? All right, let's think. As far as influences go, Calvin and Hobbes, by Bill Watterson. That was one of the first comics I ever read, and just the approach of line. Like, his line is really sketchy. It's very brushy.
Yep.
He stretches forms to make them, to heighten attention or to sell the motion of something, which I think I internalized really early on. And so definitely Calvin and Hobbes, Bill Watterson. As I got older, I got more into like Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller, that kind of storytelling. I read a lot of Tintin. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, not your fault.
Let's see. Then as I even got older, I started getting into manga. So things like Appleseed, and Ghost in the Shell, Atomo, like things like Akira. These all have helped contribute to what makes me the artist I am today.
There's a lot of mangas in your style.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the speed lines everywhere.
Yeah. The main feature that made me fall in love with Extremity is this world building. You create people, cultures, monsters. It's a brand new world. So where is the sparkle that made you create this world?
I think I started sketching some different characters. Most of my ideas start with sketches, and I was just sketching characters that I really enjoyed drawing. So a lot of that was Thea's dad, Jerome, and Thea herself. And characters kind of take on their own life the more that my characters take on more life the more that I draw them. And eventually it just got to the point where I was like, man, I really want to see what these characters would do in a story. So I just started thinking about making a story with Thea and Jerome in it, and they didn't have those names at the time. It was just, it's just what they looked like. And I had seen a lot of the kind of floating worlds in video games, in movies, in anime, things like that. But I had never really.
I bet in Miyazaki movies.
Yeah, oh yeah. But I hadn't really seen it done like really well in comics yet. So I just stole all the anime stuff and put it in Extremity. Yeah.
Another feature of Extremity is that the Earth is really different from ours.
Yep.
It has been destroyed, it's been ruined by war, and the men are the same of our world. They are greedy, they are violent,
Sure.
they are thirsty of war. So is there some connection with these two worlds? Is the world of Extremity is in some way the pigment? Is it correct?
Sure, yeah.
Of our world.
I guess you could maybe say it's a depiction of maybe where I see the world going. In Extremity, the entire base of the world is just rubble. It's just a war-torn, destroyed place. And the only life that exists is on these floating planets. And there's when the Great Mother, Diedrich, the Great Mother, talks about the history of the world. She talks about the wars that caused the humanity to rise to raise these continents into the sky,
Yep.
to basically save themselves from nuclear fallout, and that led to what you see now in Extremity. So it was basically a way for me I was just thinking over many beers, of like, where is the world going and what would it look like if things really took a turn for the worse. And then, what if there was signs to show us where we went wrong and what we made. And so, yeah, it is more or less, but in the future version of today.
We hope it's not the future we
I hope
deserve.
so too.
We hope that. And violence is really extreme in your books, such as the first cover of Extremity. In this cover we see a mutilated Thea.
Yes.
So your use of violence is a way to communicate something, or is it just a fan service stuff?
I think I started drawing things that way because I enjoy drawing that, for good or for bad. I don't know if it's a good thing. And as I kept drawing and kept making Extremity, I found myself asking the question, like, why am I drawing violence like this? Like, there's a lot of blood here. Is it really necessary? And as the story progresses and Thea kind of turns away from violence, the way that I draw violence is less and less gory.
Yep.
I don't know if you notice that, but it starts at like issue 1 is like crazy, and then it kind of peters off as you go, especially after issue 6. I kind of like really scale it down. So it's a story. It was funny. It's like one of the few stories that has challenged me to change the way that I think about drawing those kinds of things, because of the nature of the story. Like the story was almost maybe teaching me something. So yeah.
Does it taught you something?
What's that?
Does it taught you something?
Sorry.
Does it taught you something?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So, last question regarding Extremity.
Yeah.
Thea is struggling against war, against the demons that live in their father, using art. So, is this a character some kind of embodiment of the artist, maybe of you?
I guess I was trying to put myself. When I first started Extremity, Thea was not missing a hand. Her family and her clan had just been attacked, and she lost her mom and her home destroyed. And it wasn't a bad story; it just lacked that spark or the pizzazz, something to make it really true. And it wasn't until I put in my own fear of losing my drawing hand that the story kind of came to life. Almost like I gave part of my soul into Thea, and she started really then becoming her own character. And it made a lot more sense then, and it became a more unique story in my opinion, just because, I took my own narrative and I put it inside, which I wasn't doing before. I was just kind of staying safely away. So because of that, that's why Extremity exists, because I was able to, it's a hard thing to do, to kind of open yourself up and put yourself into that world. But in my opinion, it's most of the time necessary in order to make a story that will resonate with people. Yeah. Otherwise, it just becomes genre fiction that's like same thing, always. And
this year you're not alone here in Lucca, because the Salvador Press guy brought in Italy also Mr. Donny Cates.
Oh yeah.
Who is the writer of The Ghost Fleet,
yes.
The story you draw. So, would you like to talk about with us
The Ghost
about
Fleet?
This? Yep.
Sure. Yeah. It was one of my first big projects. Donnie, we had connected because I loved his book Buzzkill. That was also a Dark Horse that was coming out in 2013. And I sent him an email saying, hey, I love Buzzkill. I basically was like, I love Buzzkill. And my links to my website were in the little footer of my email. He checked out my stuff and he called me. He was like, I really like your stuff. We should do something together. And we got to talking, we became friends, and then in January of 2014, he offered me the Ghost Fleet. It got greenlit over at Dark Horse. So it was, head first right into making comics every day, and I was really excited because this is what I needed money. I wasn't really getting paid to do comics until then, and it was a real exciting time. I flip through issue 1 now, and I see, part of me cringes because I'm like, oh, I don't like the way that the art looks, but at the same time I can also sense, I can feel the young me being like hungry.
Alive.
Like, oh, I'm gonna kill this. I'm doing my very best, and it shows, man. Like, I am sweating over those pages. So even though I don't like the way it looks anymore, I'm still very proud of it. Yeah.
And you usually work alone, like in Extremity or in Mother Falcon. So how you consider to draw a book with which is written by another person?
Sorry, question one more time. Sorry, dude.
Don't worry, man. Usually work all alone. So how do you consider to draw a story which has been written by another person?
I don't like it as much. It's harder for me because I'm trying to enter into the brain of another person and trying to draw what they see, and it's a challenge. It's really difficult. And that being said, it's also easier in a sense because somebody's already coming up with the story. I don't need to figure that part out. I just need to draw it and make it look cool. But as much as proud as I am of the Ghost Fleet, it's so much more rewarding to work on a project which I've kind of made from the ground up. It's harder in the sense that it takes more out of you, and there's like that you got to put in your own element of personality and soul into the story. And then obviously the art and the world building, like you mentioned. But it's a way for me to be able to say the things that I want to say the exact way that I want to say them. And a lot of times that takes no dialogue at all, just completely silent panels. And in my opinion, silent panels have always really hit me emotionally, and that's what I try and do with the readers as well. The less said for me, the less said the better. And when I write my own stuff, I can do that, and I know exactly what visuals I need to sell it without any words. So
of course your stuff, so you can do whatever you want. Last but not least, here we have also the new edition, the trade paperback of Mother Falcon. Man, I said before I fell in love with you with the Extremity, but when I saw the previews of Mother Falcon, I saw Daniel Warren Johnson and metal. So you mixed up my two biggest passion,
awesome.
Music and metal. So I was really, really mad. So what does it mean for you to do this, to mix metal and comics? I think two passion of you too.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was 11, and I have never been physically gifted. Like I can't throw a softball or a football at all. I trip over my own feet, but man, I can fucking shred. Like, I'm really good at guitar. I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I'm not the best, but I can hold my own.
You have the guitar here?
I do not.
Nah.
Sorry. I know. Then I'm on the spot. Like, but playing the guitar has always brought me a lot of joy, and I don't get paid. I'm not a professional in any way, shape, or form. It's always just been, for more or less, a hobby and one that I love. And that's what art used to be before I got paid. I used to have a crappy job, and I'd go home and draw in my sketchbook, and that's what I did for fun.
Yep.
And then I started working on the Ghost Fleet, and I have to do this every day, or every weekday, Monday through Friday.
So you couldn't play guitar?
Well, I could play guitar, but I wasn't sketching in my sketchbook as much. Because what I used to do for fun, I was doing for work. And it's not bad, it's just different now. So it's like the thing that I used to love doing for fun now makes me money, and that's awesome. I'm not complaining, but it's also like, when you do something for fun, if you don't want to do it that day, you don't do it. No big deal. when you're drawing and you have to get something done on time, you got to
It's
draw
very
every
true.
day, no matter what. So with guitar, it has kind of replaced what drawing used to be for me, where it's just a simple, pure art form. And there's a real joy for me with listening and playing music, especially metal. I'm writing my own tunes. I try and write my own tunes when I can. And I wanted to share that passion and excitement that I had for this hobby and this love that I have of music on the printed comic page. And I was trying, and basically Murder Falcon was me trying to do that, was to share my love and passion for this music through comic book form. And that's a big part of why it exists.
You did it great, man. You did it great.
Thank you very much.
What do you think these two powerful medias have in common?
Music and comics?
Yes. Metal and comics.
Metal and comics. Well, I feel like a lot of music today doesn't necessarily allow for aggression and like raw energy and power to be expressed in a healthy way. Sadness and depression and things like that, these are things that need to be wrestled with, and I think there are a lot of genres that do that, but for me, metal is really good at getting all of those things, like dealing with darkness and things in your life you can't change, depression, anxiety, physical ailments. It's like this kind of shout. It's like a screaming at what you cannot control in a way that's just unbridled. It's just like, fuck it. Like
At banging.
I make it sound like a joke, but it's a purifying force for us.
I know what you mean.
Yes.
I know what you mean.
And I feel like that, I love all kinds of music. I love classical, I love singer-songwriter stuff, I love pop. But metal has always really spoken to me because it allows for a true depth, a true searching, and a true dive into human darkness. And hopefully coming out on the other end with something positive. That's the goal, at least. And the kind of metal that I've always loved is the most is the metal that is not afraid to have fun while also doing this. So, drinking some beer, watching some
Shredding.
kung fu movies, shredding, like flying down the highway with the top down. And that's like Murder Falcon in a nutshell. It's like that essence of being willing to go to the dark places with another person, but also willing to drink a beer with you and like, I don't know, it's just like tie bandana and like, it's hard to explain, but
I really know what I mean.
yeah.
And how did you draw music? I mean, how did you manage to give shape of, especially metal music, on a comic?
A big part of it was just the way that Murder Falcon looked, like the actual character. I said like before, my favorite kind of metal is like the 80s kind of shred, and it is over the top. It's like extra, and like everything about Murder Falcon is fucking extra, like over the top. So all you have to do is look at Murder Falcon and you're like, I get it. And that's kind of where I was going with it. Where you see Murder Falcon, you can kind of get what I'm going for.
Yeah.
So there are little subtle things that I do throughout the book, but the biggest thing, the one big punch is like just how he looks. Yeah.
And which are the main band and let's say influenced you the most during the work of Murder Falcon, or let's say which are the main bands that you were listening while working on Murder Falcon?
Definitely, this book would not exist without the band Racer X. Yeah, so they were a shred. They were in LA, all going to music school, and this is Paul Gilbert, who used to be in Mr. Big, and a few other dudes, and they just got together and they're like, we love Van Halen, but we want it to be faster and more intense. So they made Racer X, and it's like there are literally parts in the music where it's like it's just completely ridiculous. There's too many notes, like, but that makes it amazing, and they're really good songs. Even though you're listening to the song, it's like, I'm ready for that solo. When's that solo coming, you know? Yeah, exactly. So if you haven't listened to him, check him out, Racer X.
Yeah.
Amazing.
No, I know you like a lot Power Trip.
Oh, I love Power Trip. So I listened to a lot of Power Trip while working on the book. But yeah.
I saw them live one time and
They are
pretty good.
Yeah, it's
Pretty good.
So I've seen them 3 times, I think, and I'm friends with Riley, who's the singer.
Really?
Yeah, he's really into
Wow.
comics. So he's really into like indie comics. So, you know, I gave him Murder Falcon. He's like, oh, this is very wholesome.
And Murder Falcon is not only a story about music, monsters, and brawls, because there are a lot of feelings.
Yes.
Really
Yeah.
tough moments.
Yes.
And I would like to know are there some personal experiences in this book? Some when and where the Johnson, really the Daniel comes out.
Yeah, you know, I mean, when I was working on Extremity, I was going through a lot of physical ailments, and they were causing me a lot of chronic pain, and it was really bringing me down. And I don't know, chronic pain has this way where it hurts really bad when it's happening, but then when it goes away, you're just kind of sitting there waiting for it to come back, and you can't really enjoy the pain not being there anymore because you're afraid it's going to come back. So it kind of puts you in this cycle where it's really hard to enjoy little things like fried eggs or, I don't know, friggin' birds chirping, whatever, right? So that's kind of where Jake's at. When the book opens, I don't want to give anything away, but, you know, we know where the story goes and what he's worried about. And, you know, I didn't have what Jake has, but it's a way for people to relate, and that fear is real for a lot of people, you know. So I wanted to, and at first, the way you think the story starts, like I don't want to give anything away again, but like, you think that
It's going to be.
you think it's going to
that
be,
way.
you think that it's his significant other is, you know what, I don't want to,
Yeah,
again,
I know,
yeah,
I know.
but then it flips, and originally it was going to be that way that you thought, and then I was like, oh, but that's like, what, I don't know what that's like that's, but I know what it's like to be sick, and so I flipped it around, and that's where the big reveal comes from, at the end of issue 4, where, again, I'm giving things away, but whatever, the book's out, go read it. Yeah, so it's me, again, Murder Falcon and Metal, taking those dark parts of ourselves, diving deep, and trying to purify through it. Yeah.
Really. You gave me tears. Last pages gave me tears.
Thank you.
God knows why.
It,
Dio knows why.
it made me cry too. I wrote it, I was crying.
And another feature I loved of your book are this, I think, beautiful idea of giving a homage to the main metal album,
Yes.
Yep.
Metal covers, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Of the history. My favorite one is the one that Mr. Ryan Autry drawn of Vulgar Display of Power of
Yeah,
Pantera.
that's great. Do you know he drew that digitally on the plane from Lucca last year?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding.
Are you
him.
kidding me?
Yeah, so he really wanted to do one, but we were running out of time. We really needed a cover. We didn't have any, and Ryan, and so Skybound is emailing Ryan. Ryan's like, I can't do it. Like, I'm at Lucca. Like, I have no time. And I'm like, well, we need it like now. And so Ryan's like, okay, I'm gonna do it on the plane home from Lucca. So he did it on his iPad. So because I tried to buy the original from Ryan, because I wanted that page, you know. And he's like, oh, sorry, bro, it's digital. Ugh! Anyway.
I was checking if he had the original, but
Yeah, it's digital.
shit.
I'm thinking about maybe getting him to print it out and ink over it.
Yes, please. Yes.
I would buy that in a
yes.
heartbeat.
Yes.
Anyway.
So, how did you came up to this idea of the redoing the covers?
Yeah. Well, so Skybound usually doesn't like to do variants. They like to have the cover art be representative of what's inside the book, and I really respect that a lot. So they were hesitant to do variant covers, but when I pitched them this idea, they thought it was just too cool to not do. And it was great because like I got to pick some of my favorite artists and my favorite metal covers. I'm not ashamed. My favorite one is Tyrell, my buddy Tyrell from Chicago. He did the Bolt Thrower cover, and the Bolt Thrower logo he did by hand. So
really?
Yeah, so I have the original. It's the cover, which is pen and ink, and then there's a separate piece of paper that's like this big that fits onto the cover, and it's just all done pen and ink. Like he drew it out himself.
So, last question,
Yeah.
then we are done. It's known that you will be working also with DC Comics for the new Wonder Woman Dead Earth.
Yes, Black Label.
Yeah. So, what can you say about that?
Yeah.
And what you can say nothing?
Oh, I can say stuff about it.
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So, it's basically DC Comics asked me, you know, what do you want to do? And they offered me a book that somebody else was writing, and I said no. And they said, well, do you want to write and draw? And I was like, yeah, I do.
Fuck yeah.
So I pitched them an X-rated Dial H for Hero comic, and they're like, no, that will not sell. And they said, we're thinking more your take on like an A-list character. So I was like, okay, I got to think about that. Let me get back to you. So I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, well, Superman, All-Star Superman is one of my favorite comics ever, and I'm not going to come close to it. Why even try? Like, I don't want to even touch it, right? Maybe someday. I'd like to do like a Superman one-shot, but I don't really want to do a whole series, you know? Maybe that'll change someday. With Batman, I personally I'm kind of Batmaned out. Like, I'm a little tired of it, and it's already been done so well by Frank Miller. Don't really feel like going that road either. But honestly, I've never really had a desire to pick up a Wonder Woman comic. And I'm not digging on any of the creators. The character has never interested me. So the goal with Wonder Woman Dead Earth was to make a Wonder Woman comic that I would see on the stand and be like, I want to buy that.
That's a true challenge.
Yeah.
That's a true challenge.
Yeah, you know, and a lot of people have been like, what's your next book? And I'm like, oh, it's Wonder Woman. And they're like, what? Well, so, okay. I did a little more research into the character and like read a few of her books, and the visual presentation of the character is one that really doesn't jive with me. Just because it's always been a little cheesecakey. Does that make sense? Like
cheesecakey?
It's like a little bit kind of more about the boobs and the butt rather than the soul of the character.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it just, for me, as a reader, I have trouble connecting to the character when that is kind of the visual presentation. I wanted to strip the sexuality away and really dive into what makes Wonder Woman tick. Just my interpretation. I'm not judging anybody else who might have any sort of opinion on Wonder Woman. And I wanted to make a Wonder Woman that I feel like I could have a beer with. If that makes sense.
I have a problem with beer.
Or like, you know, like you sit down and I can talk to her and she is a god, but she's a god. So like, you know, almost I wanted to bring Wonder Woman down to the level where she has to interact with humanity in a way that we can understand her.
Yep.
Because doing more research into the character, she is all into like truth, justice, love, peace, reconciliation, you know. She believes in these really amazing things that, as you kind of alluded to, the world really struggles with doing. And I feel like Wonder Woman is almost in this privileged position because she is a god. Like, she can't be killed. So it's easy, if somebody stabs her, she's like, I love you, bro. You know, like, it's not a big deal. But if her powers are limited to the point where her life and her being is at stake, is she still able to say those things? You know, and she has this kind of with her personality and where she's grown up, she's not afraid to tell a stranger that she loves them. You know, and that line is in the first issue, where one of the human characters is like, "Why are you doing this?" And she just says, "Well, because I love you." And she's like, "Whoa,
Whoa.
like who are you to say that, right?" And to Diana, she's like, "Well, I'm Wonder Woman. Like, this is just how it is." Like, and other people don't understand it. But she comes from this different headspace of being a god. So that really interests me. Also, she like has a huge sword and she like cuts monsters' heads off. And I'm doing my very best. I think it's pretty awesome. Do you know who Cheetah is?
Cheetah? Yep.
Yeah. Really lame. I cannot stand that character.
Yeah?
But my cheetah's mutated and actually has a cheetah for a hand.
So she has a cheetah in his hand?
No, like so, she's Cheetah, right?
Yep.
But
Tiger girl. That's it.
yeah, but one of her hands has been mutated, and on the end of her hand is a cheetah head. Yeah, it's amazing,
You're mad. You're mad. But I can wait for it.
dude. It's gonna be so.
I can wait for it.
Sorry,
Daniel, it's been a huge pleasure. It's
dude.
a huge honor
It's
to
been a
have you
blast,
there.
man.
So, I really thank you.
I thank you.
I hope to see you very, very soon again in Italy. And thank you. Grazie.
Grazie.
Grazie mille. Ci vediamo per la prossima intervista.
Prego.
Prego. That's good. That's good.
The last line, you just prego.
That's
Cut.
good.